Hello Darts Nutz. As you can tell, I'm doing a review of the brand new Unicorn Eclipse HD2 dartboard. I'll just show you the box first. I'm sure a lot of people are interested to see what the new features are. On the box it says the clearest plane surface ever, and as you go down the box, sorry I can't get the full thing in focus on my camera, so I just have to go by what I can focus on. It lists the three features, the main features, or four features I should say. It says new high visibility injection molded numbers, fully replaceable, so let's get that a little bit closer so you can see. It says new matte black number ring, improved focus on scoring area by minimizing distractions. New slimmer bullseye, increasing plane area by 14%. New ultra slim plated steel wire, no external legs for high definition radial spider. And on the back of the box it has a checkout chart. It's got the instructions for how to set the board up and how to put the fixings on, and it's got the same features pointing out on the board, and there's a little bit more information there. Plated steel wire, no external legs for high definition radial spider, lasts longer, doesn't rust or discolour, and is 30% thinner than conventional round wire boards, increases the target area, especially in doubles and trebles, designed to maximise averages. So that's basically the box, and this is what you get inside the box. You get a Unicorn checkout poster. It's an updated one from what was on the last one I got. It's got Gary Anderson with his World Championship trophy, and you get a little paper tape measure, just handy if you want to measure out the hockey, and you get a little booklet with just the general rules of darts and how to fix the board up, and obviously you get your bracket and the little rubber stoppers to put on the board and your screws and your nails, but I'm not going to show you how to put that up because you probably know that already. So obviously we'll get to the main important bit now. The board. Here's the board. Now I'm not sure how the colours come up on the camera because it's not always accurate on the video, and it also depends on the lighting, but the colours are really nice on the board from what I can tell by my eye. I can't see. I'm just trying to look through the camera here. Yeah, it's pretty close that from what I can see from the screen on the back of the camera. It's pretty close to what I can see, so quite deep blacks and reds and greens, just as you would expect and hope. But obviously the main feature is this number ring with numbers that you can take off, and I'll have to show you in close-up because I've got the camera set to focus that distance here, but I'll show you that in a minute. But the numbering, I think, may have people's opinions divided, but I actually quite like it, and it obviously depends how durable these numbers are, because when you hit them it could be annoying if they start popping off all over the place, but they feel pretty solid and strong, and I think it's a kind of a nylon plastic, so they should be quite durable. But for me it makes the board look visually more appealing. And one thing you probably don't notice straight away when you're looking at the board, I'll just try and get it a little bit more in the middle, and like it says on the box, there's no legs on the outside ring, so there's nothing protruding into the island on the board. So it's very clean spider, and the HD1 board, my biggest bugbear on that was the spider. I wasn't keen on the spider on that, and I always prefer a spider that's more flush to the board, and this is probably one of the flushest spiders I've ever felt. It is very evenly flush to the surface of the sisal, just as it should be. On some boards it can be flush on the outer and then it can kind of raise up as it gets towards the middle, but this isn't. This is pretty flat really, and for me I think that's a good thing. On the HD1 it was raised up slightly, and also on the HD1 the spider was painted, and that was another thing I was not so keen on. And also with it being raised up, I think it created little shadows if your lighting wasn't very good, and that was another thing I didn't like. But I'll do a close-up of the spider in a second. But looking at the board, like from the distance that I am here, which is only a couple of feet, to me it's very visually appealing, and it just stands out nice and clear. But I do notice a couple of things that I'll point out to you in a minute, and I have to say that this spider is just a massive improvement. It just seems so much better. Obviously I can't test the durability, long-term durability, in this review, so that's going to be something that I'll have to do and report on later, but I'll speak about that towards the end of the review, and I'll tell you how I'm going to test it. But one thing I do notice immediately is that 25 ring, it looks pretty big. I don't know how big it is yet, but I'll measure it in a minute, but it does look very big. The bullseye looks more or less like a normal size bullseye to me. It doesn't look too big or particularly small, it just looks normal, but the impression that I get in the 25 is it does look quite a lot bigger. Pretty good for me because I'm hopeless at the bullseye. But like I said, this number ring, the numbers come off, and I think they will be available to buy, so if you do happen to break some, you'll be able to replace the numbers. How much they cost though, I don't know. And the other thing that I like about this, and it's a bit awkward trying to put this on because I'm not very, there we go. The other thing I do like about it is, if you're a bit OCD like me, and if you look where the 7 is, get this in position, you can see the 7 isn't lined up in the middle there, so just move it along. Whereas on a fixed number ring you can't do that, you have to go by wherever they've been welded on, and on the fixed number ring quite often I see numbers that aren't in line, so for me that's a nice little feature. Also, if you wanted to, you could swap the numbers around and confuse your friends when they've left to go to the toilet or anything. So I quite like the numbering. I think it's a good idea, but I think people will have a divided opinion on that. And as you can see, it is just a normal wire with the little plastic numbers stuck on little clips. But I'll do some close-ups of the board now so you can see exactly how it looks. Right, I'll see if I can get some decent close-ups of the board. I'll just show you. There's the Unicorn logo and the PDC logo, and then the Eclipse HD2 logo, and that's where your numbering is attached. And I might as well show you that while I'm here. It's a bit awkward because I'm looking through the camera while I'm trying to do this, and let's see if I can get that in focus. All that is just like a little clip. Now for people who are a decent player, you're probably never going to hit the numbers, or you may get the occasional dart hit it, and it just clips back on. I mean, you don't have to push it down, but obviously it's better that way. And each number is a single, so none of the numbers are like fixed together, they're all separate single figures. And if you're an average player, then chances are when you're going for the doubles you may hit the numbers, but they do feel pretty strong, so they should be quite durable, I should imagine. But obviously depends how the darts hit it. It is possible, I suppose, that you may break the clip off it, but if the prices of the replaceable ones are quite reasonable, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem to get some replacements. And I do think it's kind of a different kind of look with this number ring on, but like I say, some people will like it and some won't. But as you can see, the spider, it's very smooth. There's no joins or anything. I can't see any like physical joining of the wires. So there may be a join somewhere, but wherever it is I can't see it. But the one thing I was mentioning before, which is something I was going to nitpick on slightly, and it's not a massive problem, but it is something that I notice, and maybe you can see it as I'm going round the board. If you look on the black section, it looks nice and clean, but if you look on the clear section, you've got a very slight raggy edges, and I think it's because the spider must be cutting into the sisal as it's being pressed into the board, and it's just left the edges a little bit raggy. But it's not really a huge issue, but it would have been nice if it was a little bit neater, and you can notice it on the coloured sections, but it's not really noticeable on the black. Now the other slight issue, and you can see it on there where it's, I think it's just how the spider's been cut through the sisal as it's being pressed into the board. But the other thing, there's just a couple of areas where the ink could have been touched up a little. See, when I think they make the boards, the ink is actually placed onto the board first, from what I remember seeing, and then the spider is pressed over the top into the board. I don't really know how this spider is attached to the board though. My guess is there's probably some spike that goes right to the back of the board, but I'm just guessing. But it would have been nice if these areas were touched up a little. There's a couple of areas where I can see, but you don't really notice it until you're looking at the board closely. From a distance you can't really tell. And other than that, I can't really see anything wrong with it. The spider is something that I think is very neat, and it's hard to get a full focus, but you can see how close it is to the surface, and it's very flush and flat. Sometimes on some boards you get like little ridges where the sisal's been cut and shaped, like they shave it down, I think, to smooth it. There's none of that on this board, apart from that little bit there, but I'm not sure if that's just a mark from the bullseye being pressed in. Other than that, the board is very flat and uniform. So really that is the only thing that I would say is worth nitpicking about. But as you can see, that 25, it looks quite big. I'll get some measurements done and we'll have a proper test of it. Alright, I'll do some measurements. Right, I'm going to do some measurements along the segments and that, just so you get an idea. But before I do that, I just want to go and read the BDO regulations for a dartboard size and everything. I know this is a PDC board, but they still conform to the BDO's regulations. It says all dartboards shall have the following dimensions: double and treble dimensions to be for conventional wire boards measured inside to inside. So I think that assumes it's a round wire board. So the inside measurement on a round wire board should be 8mm plus or minus 0.2, and for strict material manufacture it has to be measured apex to apex, so that's from the middle of the wire, so the middle of the wire to the middle of the wire, which is probably going to be a little bit awkward trying to measure, but I'll try it. And it says it should be 10mm. So I know that's what the regulations say, but to me the important part is still the part where you score. But I'll try and get it from apex to apex. A little bit fiddly. So according to that it says 9.92, so it's obviously well within the regulation. And the inside measurement shows you how thin that wire is. That inside measurement is 9.68, so that wire is very thin. I'll see if I can measure the thickness of the wire. It says 0.8, the wire. A really thin spider. I do think this is quite probably one of the cleanest and neatest spiders I've seen. So that middle, the measurement of the inside is probably the biggest I've seen, and on the double segment it says 9.53, and just to be sure I'll try and measure the apex again. There we go, it says about 10.6, but obviously it's awkward trying to get this on exactly. And the bullseye area, the inside there is 9.77. Measure that inside, make sure it's how square it is. It's a bit awkward trying to get in when I can't see above it properly. That says 9.4, so very slightly off centre there, but not by a lot. And the inside of the bullseye, 11.64. What does it say about the bullseye? It says inner bull diameter 12.7, so it's actually smaller than what that regulation says. Outer bull ring inside diameter 31.8, so that's the full width. And I have to get it right on the, it's a bit awkward. This is 31.3, so even that is still well within the regulation of what's determined by the BDO. I'm not going to measure the full sections of there because I don't see much point in that, but what I will measure is from the inside of the top wire to the edge of the board, just to see how square it is, and that says 57.62. Get it right on the edge, so it says 59, so just 2mm difference, and that is 58.8, so it's pretty square. I can't really see visually, it doesn't look out, and that says 58 as well, so I'd say that's a pretty central spider, that. I'll just measure a couple of more trebles just to see if they're all the same size. 9.7, yeah. That one is 9.17, so that one is just a fraction thinner. And got the edge, yeah, 9.4. Obviously it depends how you grab the edges as well, because sometimes it's so close to the surface that the calipers are slipping over the edge a little bit. 9.4. I'll just measure a couple more of the doubles. 9.5, 9.6. I'd say it's around about 9.5, the average. So that's the spider measured. Now I'm just doing my thumbnail test, which I normally do with all the boards, and I can't penetrate that black with my nail. It feels quite firm on the black. It's going into the white, but only very slightly, so that the sisal seems quite firm actually, and on the green. I'll do a close-up now with the dart point going in. Right then, I'm just going to get me point and stick it in. That feels quite a firm board, that actually. That's in the white section, obviously, as you can see, and it's taken a fair bit of force to push that in. Let's see what it's like in the black. Usually I think the inks, when they're dried up, I think they bind the surface of the sisal, but that is really quite firm. And just have a look at that hole. Doesn't create too much of a hole there, so I think they are using some better sisal on this board than the green segment. I am pushing this quite hard, and it's only going in about 5mm. I'll just drop it from, well, probably about 12 inches. It's hardly going in at all from that, so it is quite solid, and we'll see what the bullseye is like. Yeah, it's a pretty dense board. Now I'll just have a test with the soft tip. This is something I normally do with a board, just to test it, just to try and see how hard the surface is. I'm going back in the same hole there. Actually, the soft tip point is going in a bit easier. It's a bit strange. Very weird. How come the soft tip point is going in easier? It's not going in so easy on the red though. Just check the point on that. Nothing wrong with the steel point. But it doesn't seem to go in as easy as the soft tip does. Bit weird. But obviously we need to throw it at the dartboard properly, get a better idea. But from that little test, I would say the board is quite a firm board, and that's usually a good sign. It usually means that the durability of the board should be quite good. Some people like a firm board, some people like a soft board. I'm kind of in between myself. But we'll get the board up now and we'll throw some darts at it. Just before I throw some darts, there's one thing I forgot to mention, although it's pretty obvious because it was the main feature of the HD1. It's just that it's not a new feature anymore, but it's still a feature, and it's the seamless sisal. On some boards, if you don't know much about how boards are made, the other type of boards that you normally get have got veins in them, and that's because they're made up of like little round biscuits of the sisal fibres, which are made into a big long tube, and then they're cut into little round circles called biscuits, and then they're all pushed together and squeezed, and because they've got like a paper wrapping around the edges, that's what normally causes the veins, and there's none of that on this board. It's completely seamless. I have no idea how they make a big complete circle like this. It must be another kind of way of manufacturing where it just made into one giant biscuit. I don't know, but that's still the same feature as what was on the HD1, so I just thought I'd point that out. So I'll shot some darts now. I still can't stand properly when I'm throwing. I've got a torn calf muscle, so it's a bit painful when I'm standing, but the first impression of just them first 3 darts is the board sounded very muted and quite solid. It definitely feels like a harder board than the one that was out before. I don't even think them points were going in very far. Now that could be a problem for me, like, because I'm not a very hard thrower. I have quite a fairly gentle throw, and it may take a while for the board to wear in a little bit, but I suspect with the way them points were sticking in, the chances are they may drop out. But that's just a personal thing because of the way I throw. I'll just throw the dart around the board. It's a very nice sound in the middle. It seems even more dense there, but I'll see if I can get my nail right onto the end of the bar. Oh no, it slipped off. I'll try it with this one. Yeah, that went in quite far, that one, like. Could be because of the black. Sometimes I think the ink kind of binds the sisal a little bit, the colours. Usually takes a few throws to break the surface a little. Well, I'm liking the sound it's making. Now I'm just looking to see the holes. I can still see them 2 on the red, but the ones on the white are not as noticeable on the white. I'll have a few more throws. Bullseye. Sticking in okay there. But, I'm just trying to see how well the holes are healing up. That's pretty good, that, on the white. I can't really see them, they're still there, but they're not very noticeable. Typical Mardle drift to the 5s. Holes on the red aren't healing up so well, but I suspect it's more to do with the ink. I'll just give it, yeah, because it feels quite hardish on the colour parts. Well, obviously I can't test the full durability in this review, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an update of how the board progresses every month. I'm going to do a monthly update for the first 6 months, and for the first 4 weeks I'm not going to rotate the board, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So obviously it's going to get more pounding in one area than it would normally, but because of various stodgy joints I only play about an hour a day anyway, so that's why I'm going to leave it as it is for the 4 weeks, and then I'll report. What's the date today? It's the 25th of May. So I'll report back with another review of a quick update in 4 weeks time, and then I'll have a better idea of how it's wearing and holding up, and I'll also record how many bounce outs and drop outs that I get, so I have a good idea. But I don't recommend that if you get the board that you leave it for 4 weeks. I think if you're playing about an hour a day, 1 to 2 hours a day, you should rotate it at least weekly. So what you do is you rotate it a couple of segments. Some people rotate it 4 segments, but I think a couple of segments. So instead of that being the 20, you'd move it around and make that the 20, and then so on and so on. But if you're playing, say, probably 3 to 6 hours a day, you might want to rotate it every few days. Also depends on what kind of points you use. If you're using like gripper points, like I said, I think they tend to pull out the sisal fibres, so I don't recommend them personally. It's okay if you're using boards that are not yours, say in a competition, but I don't really recommend them for home use unless you're want to go through quite a few boards. And also it depends how hard you throw and what weight of darts you throw, and another factor is the points as well. I have been told that if your points are too blunt, it can damage the fibres by pushing them inwards. So it's a fine line between getting it right. If the points are too sharp, it can also cut the fibres. But it's all personal things, and people will know themselves what works best. But so far, I'm quite impressed with it. Visually, I think it looks great, and I have a pretty poor eyesight, and I think this number ring is quite effective in making you focus more on the board, and also the cleanness of the outside. Probably be even better if you blacked out the logos. It'd be even more focused into the coloured board, but that's, again, it's a personal thing, and like I said, I think some people may not like the number ring, and some people will probably love it. But you're going to have to tune back in the 4 weeks time and see how it's progressing, because obviously I can't test the full durability of it, but from first impressions it seems like a pretty solid board, and that's usually a good sign that it's going to wear well. So that's about all I can do for now. Like I said, I'll do it in 4 weeks, and then I'll do an update every week, every month after that, and I'll do that up to 6 months, and then after 6 months, depending on what the board is like, I'll either carry on with a monthly update, or I'll just wait another 6 months and do a final update. So that's the end of the review. Thanks for watching.